on, guys? This is Justin. Welcome back to Tea with iiiiiivvivii. I have two awesome guests here. One of them that I do know and one of them that I don't, but these two are friends, which is very exciting. They're two very, very high performing people, which is great. This is kind of the type of person I primarily focus on. So it's very exciting to have two people like that on here today. And so I'm just going to give a little bit of background of how this works, and then we'll have these two young ladies introduce themselves, and then we'll get started. So basically I invite people on the show, question and answer show, and they get to ask me questions about where they're getting stuck. And the best way, and this is for them too, so they understand everything, and then for the people watching, the best way I can explain how I help people is with the definition of success by Earl Nightingale, where he says, success is the pursuit of a worthy ideal, meaning that if you know what you want and you're going for it, you're a success. And he estimated that by this definition, maybe about 5% of the population is successful, meaning not very many, right? So when you hear about people who are, crushing it money-wise, but are like not really happy and not fulfilled and don't know why that is, this is why that is. It's because they either don't know what this is for them or they're not going there. So this sounds very simple, but it's actually very, very difficult. It's very difficult to know what that is for us in like the truest, most accurate, non-compromising kind of way. And it's surprisingly tough to go there. And there's a lot of reasons why that is. And so this is basically the type of thing that I help people with. And, I don't call myself a sales or business coach because it's not really like looking at all these systems, but there is a definite money performance aspect to this. So people make a lot more money because of the coaching. I don't call myself a dating coach, but your relationships improve. If you're in one, they get way better. If you're in one you shouldn't be in, people get out of it. People's health gets way better. So there's all these things, but really ultimately it's about showing up completely congruent with who we are, fully ourselves, and living fully as we want to live. And I think at the end of the day, that's what we want, right? We want all these things because we really want fulfillment, right? We really want to show up fully as ourselves and live fully as we want to live. And all these other things are kind of results that happen because of that. But I think we want those things because we want that, right? And so there's lots of improvements that people get, but that just gives people a little bit of an idea of what I do, what I help with, helping people to figure out why this is, helping people to get unstuck so they can go there as quickly and effectively as possible. And then there's all these good results across the board in all areas of their life that happen because of that. So we're gonna let these ladies introduce themselves. That's a little bit about how the show works, what I help with. And so ladies, if you could just tell me your names, which obviously I know, but people don't know. And just what you do, kind of 30-second summary, and then we'll get into it, and we'll have about 25 minutes, approximately 20-25 minutes per person, and we can just go into it. And the goal for today will be to just make as much progress as we possibly can, and ideally that you can walk away with here like, okay, here's some specific things that I can start doing now that my life will be better because of this. So that's my goal for today. So Lori, if you want to start, because you're kind of at the top of our 2-person or 3-person rectangle, including me, your name, a little bit what you do, so we know who you are, and yeah.
Okay, yes. My name is Lori McKeevy. I'm an independent real estate broker, and I have an administrative team versus a team of realtors. So I have a lot of support administratively to help the ins and outs of my business every day. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity because you get to see the difference between, a brokerage traditionally run with a great brand and a super lady. And then you see when it's an independent real estate broker, which we both are brokers, and you get to see the difference. And I don't think the general public understands that part, that,
Yeah.
you still have your own real estate business that you cultivate, started from scratch with a dream. And then you can also have a really great, strong brand behind you and do the same business. So I think this is really great.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited. I have all different types of people on here from all different kind of performance levels or walks of life, or however you want to say that. But I think this will be really fun because this is kind of the niche that this service is really for. People who are like, hey, Justin, I'm making money and I'm crushing it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that my life looks exactly how I want it to. And I'm not sure exactly what to do about that. right? And I think there's a lot of people like that. And I made this service originally because I felt like I was part of that target market, you know, and I feel like, you know, for that type of person, they don't necessarily feel like a therapist is the right answer. You know, they want something that's kind of results oriented. They want to work with a high performing person like them, that they don't always have the patience for the whole therapy route. So I'm very excited for this. So cool. Darlene.
Hi, I am Darlene Messiano. I am the broker owner at Remax Titanium here in Claremont, Florida. I have been in real estate for, I want to say I'm going on 12 years. And I was a pink Cadillac sales director with Mary Kay Cosmetics for 5 years. And I learned all of my sales and through that. So that was my college. Not educated, but I did have that Mary Kay business to educate me. And I love my business. I'm very, very passionate about my business, changing lives and helping people. I'm a grandma, 19-month-old. So I'm a business owner, a wife, a grandma, a mother. We wear many, many, many hats.
Nice.
So that's me.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. All right. So, Lori, why don't we get started with you? And questions that are good are anything related to like performance, happiness, fulfillment, right? So anything that's like, hey, Justin, I'm stuck with this certain thing. I'm not sure why that is. I'm not sure what to do about it. Could be on the business side, could be on the personal side. A lot of times we can get stuck for similar reasons. But anything related to something like that would be a good question. So why don't we start with you, Lori, and we can focus on you at first, and then we can move to Darlene after that.
Yes, well, I think one of the most incredible things is social media and how we actually, like, you're a friend of mine.
Yeah.
On social media. So when I saw you pop up, I was like, I know this person, you know, so you get to see a little glimpse of who you were before I met you on Zoom today.
Yeah.
Or having said that, I'm on all the platforms possible. You know, I've got a LinkedIn, TikTok recently.
Awesome. Congratulations.
And, I do love to dance, and I know you're a dancer as well.
Yeah.
But depending on the routines, as long as, you know, they're within my comfort zone of my brand, you know, I will do a little dance here and there.
Awesome.
However, so the only problem, challenge that I have is the consistency of it all. It's like, okay, like one day I'll do this and then, you know, I forget about it, or, you know, I'm not as consistent to grow an audience. You know what I mean? I mean, my biggest audience is probably Facebook, because I've been doing that the longest, and was recently given the title as a creator from Facebook, and have
Nice.
the option to be paid and things like that. But I am not consistent about it's that's probably my biggest challenge that I would need.
Yeah.
And she does really, really cute videos, like fun.
Yeah. And that's tough, you know, are you talking about consistency in general in life, or basically in this one specific thing?
Well, probably that, because if, you know, that's what gets in the way is my life. So if things happen, then I'm thinking, oh no, I didn't post that 30-second video, or no, or I question myself. Like I have a mental, like, wait, should you do that or should you not? You know what I mean? Like it's kind of doubting myself a little bit, like what is worthy of putting on social media, or you know, then life gets in the way, you know, because I get really busy, and then I don't, you know, post for the day, or I don't, because that's really where this is going, is social media. It's like people go, oh, I saw you on Facebook, and they feel like they know you, and they'll call you and they'll say, hey, can you come list my house? I saw you on Facebook, and they act like they know you, but they don't really. You're like, oh yeah, okay. Where do you live? You know.
Yeah.
I think so. I know it's very powerful.
I'm just grabbing something to write with, so I'm making sure that I answer your question the way that I want to.
I want to give you a little idea, Lori, while he grabs that. I just started doing 30 videos in 30 days. So it's like I may even do 3 videos in one day, and I'm promoting all the small businesses in our area.
Mm-hmm.
So it's forcing me to get out and to go meet people, but at the same time, I'm out there and I'm doing a video, and then I'm putting my little things in, but I'm saving them. So every day I have at least one video to give.
Okay. I'm writing this down too.
Yeah. So I think there's like a number of different like things in there that are happening. I think consistency with anything, including social media, is just making it a priority, like making it our standard, meaning like something, it's like the difference between something that has to happen versus something that would be nice if it happened, right? So it's the same reason that we either work out or don't work out consistently, that we eat healthy consistently or not, that we do anything consistently or not, right? And social media would still, so some of these things that apply to social media apply to everything, which is that like for the things in our life that it'd be nice if we did, but if we don't, it is what it is. Those are the things we tend not to do consistently because they're not our standard. It's not what has to happen. You know, it's something I know Tony Robbins talks about, or you don't get what you want to have happen, you get your standards. And so I think part of sometimes, and look, I struggle with this too. It's like being very consistent on social media and building a brand. There's a lot of reasons why that's tough, right? I'm most active on Instagram, and so sometimes I'm not as active on Facebook. I feel like my content is kind of more conducive to Instagram because it's very much a lot of video. And I think on Facebook, it's almost more like a scrapbook. People want to see like the picture with the text. You know, I think Facebook's a lot like that. At least I see it that way. But part of it is making it our standard. I think sometimes we don't make things our standard because we don't really see the necessity of it or the value of it. And I think one of the hard things about being consistent on social media is that it's sometimes hard to see the immediate value, you know, because it's like we're putting in all this work and we sort of feel like nothing is happening, you know.
Right.
I think it's just maybe understanding the value of brand, right? It's kind of a question of like, well, how important is brand? And I think brand is hard because it's this massive undertaking. You know, it's like building the Great Wall of China, you know, and it's like, how do you do that? And they built it brick by brick, but it probably wasn't looking like it was going so fast, you know, when they were building it brick by brick. So I think understanding that it needs to be our standard for us to be consistent with it. And if it's our standard, it means we have to understand that it's important. I think sometimes the way to understand if something's important or not is understanding the price we pay if we don't, you know? And so, you know, at the end of the day, we're all sort of commodities without brand, you know? In real estate, there's a million freaking brokers and realtors and all these things, but brand is sort of like the one thing nobody can take from you and nobody can completely duplicate or replicate, you know? So I think the stronger our brand is, the less sales resistance there is, you know? So if I'm like, hi, I'm Justin Sandler, the coach, and you know, people look me up and there's nothing online, it's sort of like, man, I don't know about this. But you know, the better our branding, the better our positioning, there's not that sales resistance in our we have a lot more power, you know. So it's hard because it's such a big picture thing and it takes forever, right? But those are some of the things. I think making it our standard, the reason it's our standard is because of the value of brand. The reason brand is important is because without it, you know, we're sort of a commodity, you know, and with it, you know, it's very powerful because if we really have a brand and somebody really wants to work with us, then price is not as much of an issue. You know, it's like, okay, that's what you charge, whatever it is, what it is, like you're the one I want to work with. And, you know, you're the only one that's you know, so those are some thoughts.
Right.
Another thought is, I know you were saying like, well, how do you know if something is good enough to put out, or, you know, you start to doubt yourself. That's another piece of, I think, your question. I can tell you for me, that's something that I think I'm really good with. The consistency is hard. That's hard for everybody. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm perfect with that because that really is hard. But those are some of my thoughts with that. But my other part of the answer, which is how do you know if it's good enough and things like that? The way that I look at that is, and this is what allows me to be pretty good at posting, I could be better, is kind of really zooming out, right? So I don't put really too much emphasis on any one piece of content. I just do the best I can with every single piece of content. And of course, we all want it to do well, and we all want to kind of have that pop moment where all of a sudden we're doing great, right? They're following or whatever. But I kind of look at it like zooming out, maybe sometime in the next 5,000 pieces of content I put out, something's really going to pop and my account's going to blow up or something, so I'm not really thinking about that one piece. And I don't spend that much time creating it, and I don't spend much time posting it. It's more like I have an idea, it's valuable, put it out, stopped thinking about it, because you already posted another one later that day, or you posted it the next day. So if you're posting once a day on all these platforms, it doesn't even really give you that much time to think about, oh my gosh, this one post. So I think if you are at all times, which I'm sure you are, I can kind of tell already of you as a person, you're probably this way. If you're already trying to add as much value as you can in every post, and you're trying to make people's lives better, and you're trying to say something that you feel is valuable and it's from the heart, I promise you it's good enough to post. But I think one of the reasons we think something's not good enough to post is because we're a little too micro. We're thinking about how it needs to do now, instead of like, how's content piece number 5,000 going to do? Because if you zoom out like that, all of a sudden your stress is divided by 5,000, right? So everything that was on that one is now like this, and it's like, oh, that's not so bad, I can put it out. So those are a couple thoughts that I have about that. Is that helpful?
Yes, I've like written down notes, and sorry if you were seeing my forehead. I was like writing this down because it does give me a, release. Like, I'm not the only one struggling with this.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Well, and as an entrepreneur, like nobody tells you to get up. Nobody tells you what to do. Nobody tells you how many calls to make. You're very responsible for a lot of the way your business flows. So it's like just that connection that, hey, I'm not the only guy out there struggling with this, just makes me feel so much better. And I think this is very important because, as someone that puts a lot of stress on themselves, and has goals that you just want to be the best for your family and everything, and also an inspiration for your daughter, whatever they're looking at you. But just a little backstory on me. When I first started in real estate, it was 2006, and my husband of 13 years abandoned us.
Oh,
I mean, he took everything. So young realtors out there, do not buy a Mercedes Benz the first time that you come into do not do it, because I, before the market crashed really hard in 08 or whenever that was, I was really, really successful. And so I said, well, I need to emulate my success. I bought into that lie that you've got to present yourself as successful, whatever. So I bought this Mercedes Benz, which I regret. And I mentioned that because he took it with him. So my vehicle that I had put that huge down payment on and everything. And I wasn't wise with a lot of the money that I had. And so I found myself with no money in my bank account, no car, no anything. And just got on my knees in my closet and cried out to God. I was like, I had no one to go to. And I had this real estate license, and no steady income, no anything. It was just like somebody just, when you fall and there's no off a trapeze and there's nothing to catch you. So all I heard was work. So I said, all right, well, I'm going to work. So I ended up working 3 jobs. And in a couple of the 2 that I had was for an eye place. When I was in college, I worked for an optical. So taking that optical background, I was able to work at a lens crafters in Winter Garden. And I had 7 sales, you guys, from just the coworkers.
wow.
There's this lady, this single mom. She's a realtor. You need to call her. I never had a group of people love me. And, if I needed hours, they were like, give your hours to, so-and-so. People would take vacation and give me their vacation and be like, our store doesn't have any hours because if we're in a recession. And they would be like, I'm going to go take my hours so you can work. So I had this amazing experience during that time.
That's awesome.
So it was like, but I still kept, doing real estate. And basically, through all of that, I am married now. And of course, my children are adults now. And my daughter, my third, she's going to be 30 in September. She's watching me. She's like, Mom, you've worked so hard, like we've seen you like do this and everything. And, I'm the first one in my family to own a business. And, I was born in a third world country in Juarez, Mexico, which is, they have femicide. You know how we have homicide? They have femicide because so many women are murdered. There's a lot of sex trafficking. There's a lot of problems. And, I thank God every day that, I'm here. My grandmother was born in Flint, Michigan. So, we did have that access to come and actually build a business, build a brand, build a dream. And so that's kind of why I'm really focused on trying to show people that you could have nothing and you could really work hard and you can create something, and show other young women that, you can build something. There's opportunity out there. Yes, you're going to have to roll up your sleeves. You're going to have to hear a lot of no's. You're going to have to hear a lot of rejection. You're going to have to hear a lot of, oh, she's not a real brokerage because she doesn't have a big team. All this is nonsense. If you focus on building your brand on honesty and integrity and doing the right thing, people will call you and be like, hey, I've never met you, but my friend told me to use you and here's my keys. Go look at my house, tell me how much it's worth and send me the listing agreement. I mean, that's just the kind of rapport that you will build with people. And I think it's very genuine that people do that for you. They do the marketing for you if it's done right. You don't have to pay $10,000 for some AI to find you some leads. People, if you do the right thing and you build a brand that honors God and honors people, they will come to you. The right people come to you. If they don't go to you, that's not your customer. You don't need to worry about them.
Yeah.
I show up or they call me and I'm the one that gets the listing. There's no other calls, there's no competition. And that's possible, if you really work hard and, do that part of the business, which is the rolling up the sleeves that nobody sees, the heartache, the heartbreaks that you get with dealing with people, it's not easy, as you know.
Yeah.
I don't know where all that came from, but
No, it's good. I mean, and just to kind of be like a mirror or sounding board for you, the stuff that you're saying is brand. And brand comes from content creation, which was your question, so brand is so hard because it's so hard to see, it's like, it's such an enormous undertaking to be on all these platforms every day. And it's so easy to feel like nothing's happening. But when someone's calling you or when you just have these lay down sales come from brand.
Yeah.
Like that can't happen without brand. For me, it's especially important. Well, maybe not especially, it's just as important for you guys as for me. But just to give you an example, I mean, I price myself. You know what I mean? I decide my pricing. So if I want to be very, very high ticket, that's fine. But I need to have a brand. Like, people have to be able to go out there and see, like, what is this guy about? Right. So if I have no brand, if I have no content out there, I'm probably not going to be able to charge high ticket because people will be like, I don't even know what this guy's deal is or who he is. But if I have enormous amount of content out there showing like, this is what I'm about and people like it, then it's like the sales resistance is way lower, so for you guys in a market where, or in a profession or career or world of entrepreneurship where there's so many, anybody technically could list or sell somebody's house or help them buy, although there's going to be a giant range in skill level, right? And I know that I personally don't think it's a commodity, but a lot of people can view it as a commodity, right? And so brand is what differentiates you. It's like your identity. And I think, I think the more we lean into really who we are and letting more and more of our true self out, and even posting about different stuff, like on my Instagram, I have a little highlight area where it's fitness and I have all this fitness stuff that I'm doing. And then I have a little highlight area that's dance, a little it's like we can show these different parts of ourselves. We don't only have to be one part when we're on social media. And I think the more we lean into who we are, the harder it is to copy us, the harder it is to compete with us, right? Because nobody can completely replicate us. So I think the consistency is hard because it feels like we're working so hard and it feels like nothing's happening. But I think we have to understand that without it, we'd be in some really big trouble, right? Because when you are thinking of consuming a service, you go online, right? You Google it. What does their Google listing look like? What do their reviews look like? Their website, testimonials, blah, blah, blah. What does their content look like? Imagine wanting to consume a certain service and going online and none of that's there. It's like you don't trust it,
Right.
But the more that's there, the trust is higher, the sales resistance lower, everything's better. So it is hard. It's hard for me to, especially all the different platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. It's a lot. It's a lot. But I think like anything in life, it's understanding the price we pay if we don't do it. And the price we pay if we don't do it is we have no brand and we're a commodity and we fail. So basically, we're in big freaking trouble if we don't do this. And when the cost of not doing it is that high, and we really understand that, just like the cost of not working out, right? If we don't work out and we don't eat and we don't sleep, we could be like, oh, I don't know if we have time. It's hard to make it a priority, but the cost is so high to not doing that stuff that we're sort of screwed if we don't. Like it's mandatory. And so it's just seeing brand as something that is not optional. It's something that we have to have the life we want, and we're guaranteed to not have the life we want without it. I know something Gary Vaynerchuk says I think is very true, is that everybody is a media company first and then what they do, right? So we are all media companies first and then real estate, and then for me, coaching, right? And money follows attention, right? But with no attention, there's no money, right? Or with no attention, there's no influence. There's more things in life than money, right? Influence for lots of reasons. One of them is money, but then other reasons too. So with no attention, we can't do anything. With no media company, we can't do anything, right? There is no just in the coaching if nobody knows what the heck I'm doing and nobody's interested in nobody, you know what I mean? So it's tough because it's so much work and it's sometimes hard to feel like it's doing anything. But I think just understanding that without that, we're completely screwed, because without that, we're just Lori, the realtor, Darlene, the realtor out of billions and billions. Right. And then again, not putting so much pressure on yourself, not putting so much pressure on yourself for any one post, not overvaluing too much any one post. Just keep it moving, add as much value for every post that you can, and then have peace knowing that that was a good post. And, some of them pop and some of them don't. And sometimes we make something that we think wasn't amazing and it pops. And a lot of times we make content we think is awesome and nobody views it. And kind of just managing expectations, because when our expectations for our post is so high, it can be scary to post because then we're not so sure the post will meet the expectations. But if our expectations are, I'm going to try to put out something really, really valuable to people every single time I do it, and I'm going to throw it out there and I'm going to keep moving. I'm going to be on to the next one. And somewhere in there, some good things are going to happen. I think that's the type of approach that helps you to kind of keep cranking them out.
Can I bounce off of that real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Lori, one of the biggest, I just figured this out. Telling stories is really important. Okay. So your story is very similar to mine, and I didn't even know that. So those stories that you tell are very valuable. So go out there and tell stories, tell people, and that will bring them value because that'll attract them to you where they'll meet on common ground with you.
Very good. Yes. I actually have a story for y'all.
Yeah, sure.
So this weekend, I was coming home into my neighborhood, and it's a gated community. So I, of course, have access to come in. And I went to visit an open house, and this open house was over $1 million, let's just say. And so I went in, and those salespeople, it was a man and a woman, and they were kind of cold. I don't know why they think they have to be this certain, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
I start going through the house really quickly, and she follows me around, and I'm like, dude, like, you see, I'm a realtor. I have a badge, whatever. So anyway, so I went with it. We get upstairs, and so she's like talking the entire time. Like, I can't even think, you know? And so we get upstairs, and there's this room, and I do have clients that are luxury clients, I do. And she asked me this question, and it was borderline, like, what the heck, kind of thing. She said, like, do you even have a client that would like this house or something like that? And as she said that, you guys, she farts. Toots. And I look at her, and I'm like, see, God got you. And she says, excuse me. It was like the awkwardness, and she stopped talking. It was like really interesting. So I just started walking out, and she stopped following me around. But
That's funny.
what was funny was, I looked up at the ceiling, and I was like, you want to laugh, like, have your response, and it's so mature,
Yeah.
It was so, like, I tried not to laugh, and I looked up at the ceiling. I was like focused on, like, here's the chandelier, I'm like walking myself straight. But I just think that, certain, they think they need to act a certain way or whatever, and it really was a turnoff. And in this market, with this shift, you're going to have to really show some skill set, and you're going to have to really be relatable.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we may get rid of some of those that don't have that natural talent to be able to have that grit, to be, to stick in it, and go through the hard times and those types of scenarios. But anyway, that was my weekend, y'all.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you never really know who you're talking to.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So I think it's important to always assume you're talking to somebody important, and I think really every person is important, every human being is important. And I think the way people treat people says a lot about them,
Right.
and she made an assumption about you
Judged you.
based on maybe how you look, or I don't know exactly what her assumption was based on. Only thing she could see is how you look, so maybe it's how you look, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think that when we're about excellence and we're showing up at all times in the world in a way that we're trying to be excellent and trying to be great and trying to really serve people at the highest level possible, and taking what we do in our craft is very seriously, it's I think sometimes it can feel like nothing's happening, but that doesn't mean nothing's happening. And I think social media is like that too. It can feel like nothing's happening, but doesn't. It's like, when you're planting seeds, it doesn't always look like things are growing. And sometimes it feels like what you're doing isn't having any impact. And so it can be discouraging, but I think part of building a really amazing life is it does take a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of faith. It takes taking a lot of massive action and sort of having that faith and trusting the process, that if what you're doing is an important task, like a 10% task that's giving a 90% return, to kind of keep with it and have the faith even when you can't see it, and to kind of go back to brand. I think that brand is a lot that way, where it's sort of, our time is valuable. We can calculate our dollar per hour or however you want to do that. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm spending so much time, nothing's happening. But I think understanding that brand, social media, content creation, it is a 10% task that's giving us a 90% return. But it takes a lot of courage and endurance and faith to keep executing it day after day. But that's why brand is hard.
That's so
brand
good.
is brand is very hard, and that's why most people don't have a brand. Building a brand is very difficult, and it takes time. But once you have a brand, you could sell anything. Once I have people's attention, I could sell clothing or jewelry or cologne or whatever. I could sell anything, because it's just brands. It's just attention, and then attention, you can do anything with that attention. Does that kind of make sense, or is that helpful at all, and kind of like how to view that?
Yes, it really is helpful. And you're so easy to talk to, Justin. It's like I could just go on and on.
I know, I told you.
It's like
And
a humbling. Mhm.
I want to bounce off of what Justin said, because Mary Kay Ash taught all of us to always pretend that everyone is walking around with a sign around their neck saying, make me feel important. That just triggered it. When you said that, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what I was trained and embedded in my head. Make me feel important.
Yeah, I like
that's
that.
Awesome.
I like that. Awesome.
I have some similar topics because I know that she touched on, you know, honesty and stuff, but my topic that I would like to talk to you about is the gift of discernment and knowing when someone is honest and truthful, because in this business, everyone, you know, and in this world right now, everyone is out for themselves, you know, but I love to follow the golden rule, do unto others as you want done to me. And when I hire agents, I look for honesty, responsibility, and generosity. And if they don't show those three traits, then I really don't want them to be a part of my family and my company. So the gift of discernment is what I struggle with, because I give everyone the benefit of the doubt. And I'm always like loving on you, and I'll give you all my time and energy. I'll train you. I'll do everything for you. And then the true colors show. And then I ended up getting hurt at the end. So I want to try and stop it in the very beginning and have that gift. Like, is there any tips that you can give us to make sure that we are looking for the right people? And I know Lori has this gift, but I don't want to say it out loud, but I struggle in this area.
No, you could say out loud. I mean, even like Lori said with the social media, I mean, anybody who says that they don't struggle posting every day across like 6 different freaking platforms would probably be lying. I mean, it's really hard to do that. So, you know, that's why I admit that that's hard. I mean, I think that's hard for everybody. Yeah, good question. So, sometimes I have lots of things in my head at the same time, and I'm trying to figure out which one to start with. I mean, I guess my first reaction is intuition, right? I'm a big believer in intuition. If your intuition says something is off, listen to it. You know, if on paper they sound good and the words they're saying are good, but something's off, go with it. You know, words are easy to edit. You know, it's easy to lie with our words. Tonality is harder to edit, but still doable. Body language is very difficult to edit. Most people can't watch their body language. Watch their body language over their words. I don't really listen to what people say. I just watch their body. This was how I got good at sales in the first place. Lori, I don't know if you know, I used to be in new home sales. That was what I did before this. And in the beginning, that was very difficult for me. I had been in sales, but not as high of a ticket item as a house. And, you know, I had the experience of, you know, people say they're definitely going to buy and they don't buy. And that, you know, is a very confusing process, especially when you're not good at what you do yet. And I basically started studying sales and persuasion. One of the things I studied was body language. And when I stopped listening to what people were saying and I just watched the way they move and their bodies, everything changed. So Darlene, when you're in these interviews with people, don't put too much emphasis on what they're saying. I would almost disregard it. Almost disregard their words, watch their body, watch the way that they're moving. There's something called baselining, where you're trying to kind of figure out what their resting body language is and their kind of way of being when they're neutral, and watching for shifts. So if you say something and something shifts, like something becomes more crossed, something becomes, you know, disappearing thumbs, disappearing hands behind the back, legs go back, anything that like indicates a negative reaction to what you just said, that is really hard to edit that stuff. So that stuff is real. Beyond body language, what's nearly impossible to fake probably is energy, you know? So the way that someone's showing up in the world, like it's hard to fake that. So, and I think that's where a lot of our intuition is coming from, is we're sort of picking up that something is either right or not right with someone. So watch their body language, kind of notice what you're feeling. Women are better at this than men, of kind of their feeling of what's happening. Men tend to be more literal. But if you feel like something's off, it's probably off. If you're noticing something with their body language, it's off. That means it's off. I think part of it is clarity. Clarity meaning knowing exactly what type of agent you do want, and not meaning, oh, I want a good agent, meaning like, okay, age, gender, personality type, how much do you want them to be selling? What do you want your relationship with them to be like? What would the perfect agent for you be like? Really that archetype. And then this is a really, really big one, being willing to say no to anything that's not that. A lot of times, especially as service providers, we sort of, and this is something I think about a lot, honestly, is I think in real life, we sort of have different rules than business life, right? In real life, if someone doesn't treat us well, we don't like that and we don't appreciate that. And ideally, we don't tolerate that. Hopefully we don't, right? But in business life, and realtors are really big on not doing this well, right? Is that realtors really let themselves get shit on, and stomped on and like pushed around. And, maybe with having agents, sometimes we might feel this way, where for some reason, like once money's involved, our rules kind of change and we don't respect ourselves as much as we should. And I think that comes from a couple places. I think one of the places is not being clear enough on what the ideal is that we do want. And then I think the other reason is that we settle. We settle for the agents we take on. We settle for the clients we take on. We settle for the buyers we work with. We settle for the listings we want to take on. We settle for where we're willing to price it at. We settle for all these things. And it's against what we really want to do, but we do it because a couple reasons. One, we're not so sure that we can get what we do want, either because it's just not out there or because we're not good enough or whatever. But those are a couple thoughts. Watch the body language, notice their energy, go with your intuition. Those are ways that you can catch those things sooner. Knowing exactly the type of agent that you do want on, so you can say no to anything that isn't that. And, kind of back to the Great Wall analogy, imagine if you built the Great Wall with all these shitty bricks, if it was built of all these bad bricks, like the house on the rock versus in the sand, right? If it's built on the sand, it's like, yes, you have a house, but it's not really the house you want to live in, And so with clients or realtors or whatever under you, it's like, yes, you could do that. But, I think it's something I've been thinking a lot too. I think settling is like one of the worst feelings. It's like one of the worst feelings because it's basically we're telling ourselves we're really not that valuable and we really can't get what we actually want. So we're just going to take what we can get. It almost makes you feel kind of gross and it almost makes you feel kind of like disrespected. And it's like disrespected by yourself. And that's probably the worst type of disrespect because it's like that silent aching that's kind of like ripping you up and it. And even if other people can't see it, you know when you settle, and I think settling in all areas of our life is a very exhausting feeling. And I think this is something I say a lot to my clients. Everything has a price, so yes, turning them away has a price, but taking them on has a price. And sometimes you have to think about, is taking them on, is that a price higher than I want to pay? Is this person really my archetype of the type of person I want? A thing I tell my clients is you have to be willing to walk. If you're willing to walk, if you're willing to walk away, you have power. If you're not willing to walk away, you don't have any power. And the other person knows it. So for me, I've been in situations where even if and when money was really, really low, I will turn people away. If someone no call, no shows me on an appointment where we're trying to figure out if we're going to work together, I'm like completely uninterested in working with them. Someone shows up, 20, 30 minutes late to that first appointment where we're figuring out if we're going to work together, I turn them away. If I'm feeling like I'm not being respected, I turn them away. I have to feel like I'm being respected because if I don't, it's not worth it. And that can be tough because it's like, well, Justin, how can I turn people away? I need these people. But I think it's better to have the people you want and turn some people away than be taking on people you don't want, because having people you don't want is really not fun. It's really emotionally draining. Our energy being drained has a very high price. you know, and it has a price, not only a business price, but also a personal life price.
Mhm.
And I think once you realize that settling has a cost, it's not without a cost, then you can realize like, oh, okay, so me settling is not neutral, or it's not just a gain. A lot of times we see settling as either neutral or a gain, meaning like, oh, well, at least I've got something. I did an Instagram post about this where I said, I was asking the question, is something better than nothing? Right. And I think a lot of people, we say this, right? Well, at least I have something, right? Like, at least I have some person I'm dating, or at least I have some client, right? But that's a very dangerous way to think. So I heard this example one time of if you wanted a new couch, right? Maybe you guys have heard this example, but it's like if there's a couch in your house, there's physically not space for a different couch. It's not, right? So if you want a new couch, you got to get rid of the couch so that you can physically put another couch where that couch is. And so I think that settling in the Instagram post, and this was a 30-second reel, you know, it was a quick video. All my videos are these 30-second reels. But I basically said that I think it's better than nothing. And the reason is that something actually has a really big cost, because it's taken up a spot that is, one, draining us, two, something else could be there. You know, so a lot of times when we're settling, we think that it's actually not so bad, that it's actually good, but we don't really realize the price we're paying. So I know those were a bunch of different points I just said, but I think if you think about all of those different things when you're in those meetings, when you're trying to, you know, also understanding that, you know, your energy and your time is very valuable. There's a you know, don't cast your pearls before swine, right? Good scripture. There's a quote by Jim Rohn where he says, don't send your ducks to eagle school, you know, and it's a great funny quote, which is like, you know, don't overly invest in people that shouldn't be invested in, you know. And it's like, oh, Justin, why not? Something's better than nothing. It's like, well, don't be so sure, because you have a finite amount of time and energy and resources, and you have to be very strategic about who you put those into. You know, going back to 80-20 rule, right? Really more like 90-10. So 10% of our efforts, 90% of our return, and vice versa. You know, asking yourself, is this a 10% agent that I'd be bringing on? Would they be in my 10%? Is this a 10% buyer that I want to work with? Is this a 10% listing person that I want to work with? You know, actually being willing to turn people away. You know, a lot of people, when it comes to money and business, they can't even comprehend the idea of turning someone away, because like, oh, it's money. Of course I have to take it. No, that's not true. You know, one of the great things about being in business for ourselves is we make the rules. And if someone's not playing by our rules, it's like, there's the door. But that takes a lot of self-esteem to do that. And that's not so easy, right? To walk away from money, especially when you need money, right? Especially the lower the money is. But those would be some thoughts. Watch the body language, watch the energy, go with your intuition, know the archetype of, is this the type of person that I want? And being willing to walk if it's not that, understanding that your energy is valuable. Are they a 10% that you're going to get your 90% return that you should be investing in? Understanding there's a price you pay when you settle. It's not neutral. So those
I
are
love
some
that. Now, how would I study body language? Would I just get a book on it? Would I watch videos on it?
Yeah, so definitely there's a bunch of good books on it. I can even send you all the books that I read on it. But
Mhm.
I guess the most simple things for body language, I guess, just to get you started. So baselining, right? It's like there's certain ways that people carry their body, and you kind of want to try to get a sense of like, what is this person's resting state? And then you're looking for shifts away from that. So you'll say something and then they'll react a certain way, and you're looking for those reactions, because body language, it's really, really, really hard to edit, really freaking hard, because our bodies sort of already responded before we even were consciously aware of it. So even people that are really good at body language, they still have what's called micro expressions, which means they still sort of already let out something, even if they're like world class at controlling their body language. But I guess some basic things, you know, open versus closed. Um, Anything that's disappearing is not good. So disappearing thumbs, their thumbs going like this,
Okay.
disappearing hands, hands behind the back disappearing, legs going back in the chair disappearing. Anything that's crossing, usually not good. You know,
Close.
the tighter that the cross is, or the legs being you know, pushed together. You know, anything that's self-soothing, a lot of self-touching, you know, is kind of like an anxiety thing.
Or like fidgeting and stuff.
Yeah, fidgeting. you can look at what direction their belly button is pointed. It's pointed in the direction of our interest. If our belly button is pointed away, something is off. You can look at the direction of their feet, the direction
Their
of our,
eyes, if
yeah,
they're
their
not
eyes,
looking at you when they talk to you.
but some of these things are a little more subtle. So like the direction of the feet. So if they're saying I'm really interested, but their feet and their belly button are pointed away from you, they're not interested.
Okay.
The body language always trumps the words, because words are easy to edit and body language is not. So watch their feet. Our feet are a very good sign of the indicator of interest. Are their feet pointed towards you? Is their belly button pointed towards you? Look for proximity. So are they very close to you, or are they kind of leaning towards you versus are they kind of leaning away? Are they kind of back in their chair? Anything, the closer the proximity, usually a good sign. Further the proximity, usually not as good of a sign. You can look for their lips. Are disappearing lips? Are their lips kind of like piercing, or are they open and a little more full? The pupils, are the pupils kind of dilated, which is usually more like letting more light in. It's more pleasurable, right? It's usually a good sign. Versus if their pupils are very small, it's called snake eyes, then it's usually not a good sign. It means there's kind of a disapproval of what they're seeing.
Wow, I don't need to read the book now.
Yeah. If their eyes are kind of squinting, squinting is usually not good. They're wanting to take less light in, which means there's something that they're disapproving of that they're seeing. Anything like that, anything that's fidgeting, anything that's closed, anything that's disappearing, anything that's leaning away, not a good sign. Anything that's more leaning towards you, that's more open, belly button towards you, feet towards you, those are good signs. And anything where their words are contradicting their body language, you go with their body language, because it's really hard to edit. And go with your intuition, because sometimes you might not consciously know that it's their body language that's off. But if your intuition is telling you something is off, part of it could be that you're noticing that something's off with their body language. Look for congruency. If it feels like they're incongruent, like their words are saying one thing and their body's saying another thing, it's like, how you sort of feel like something is off. You listen to those feelings of something is off, because it probably is.
I know we're running out of time. But
Let me see. Yeah, we got 5 minutes, so probably
okay. So, but our next conversation, I would love to talk about, okay, now how do you eliminate? How do you say no? How do you, if you have people in your life that don't bring you joy and that are just sucking you dry like a vampire, how do you approach it in a way where you can eliminate them out of your life? Because I had to do that many times. And, I struggle with that because I love everyone.
Yeah. So I have a lot of thoughts on it, and we've got 4 minutes, but I'm trying to think of the fastest way to say this. You teach people how to treat you. If you don't like the way people are treating you, then you change it. If you don't want to give someone access to you, don't give them access to you.
Set boundaries.
Sometimes maybe you want to give them an explanation of like, hey, this is why I'm ending this. Sometimes you don't give an explanation, you just X them out completely. I think a big part of the answer to that, in terms of like how do you actually do it, is you have to understand, sometimes there's a lot of people where they have a big heart and they just want to treat everybody well. I think you're like that. I have a lot of clients like that. But you have to understand the price you pay by sacrificing yourself. So it's like, yes, you have to treat others well. That's good. You got a big heart. That's good. But a lot of times people let themselves get into a place where they're not treating themselves well, right? So you have to treat and value yourself at least at the level of how you're treating and value others. And if you're not doing that, that needs to be raised, So sometimes you can talk something out and set some boundaries and things are better. Sometimes you give someone an explanation to X them out. Sometimes you X them out without an explanation. Like there's lots of ways to do it. But I think the most important thing to understand is that you are just as much or more valuable than them, especially because you have to be your own advocate because you're you and this is your life. And understanding that you're valuable. And if something doesn't meet your standards, then, you can change it. Nobody is forcing you to put up with a certain thing. If we're putting up with something, that's our fault. If people are treating us a certain way consistently, then we've trained them that that's okay. And we have to either retrain them and keep them around, or just X them out because we don't want to keep them around. But a lot of that, it goes back to just valuing ourselves, you know, because if we're valuing ourselves here and we're valuing the other person here, then, you know, it's going to be tough, right? Because we're going to let them do this. But if we value ourselves here or here, then when that starts happening, then yeah, you draw the boundaries, you know, and how do you draw boundaries? Well, I think kind of feedback sandwich, right? So I'm trying to go as fast as I can, but you know, you can be like, hey, you know, I really appreciate blah, blah, blah. And I appreciate you. And I know you're working really hard. And I know you know, want the best for this project we're working on, blah, 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 you know, but I feel like sometimes when you do this, sometimes I feel this way. And, you know, I would really appreciate it if blah, 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 you know, so just as an example. But we teach people how to treat us. If people aren't treating us well, you know, we sort of have to take a look in the mirror. It is our fault, even though we don't like to hear that. And that goes for me too. And valuing ourselves enough that we're like, no, you know, not cool, not going to put up with that. I'm better than that. And part of that's the abundance mindset, right? We put up with it because we're not so sure we're going to get something else. But it goes back to what I said about settling, which is that I think settling is a bad feeling. You know, I think there's a price to it. I think that we don't think there's a price, but I think there is. And as you just said, with people sucking your blood dry or however you said, that's a price. You're talking about a cost, you know, and your energy is very valuable, both in a monetary sense and in a personal life and happiness and fulfillment sense. So when someone is infringing upon that and taking your energy, that has a cost, and that's not fair to you. So good to value and care about others, but good to value and care about yourself too. It's okay to incur a little bit of a cost, but not so great of a cost that you're being affected to that extent. But understanding that you let yourself get there and you have to bring yourself back here, whether that means redrawing the boundaries of the relationship that you continue that relationship, or whether it means Xing it out because that's just something that shouldn't even have been there in the first place. But understanding that building that great wall with good quality bricks, or that house on the rock versus in the sand, it can be scary to turn away the bad quality bricks, right? Because we kind of need those. We're like, oh, but Justin, I need those agents, or I need this, or I need that. But once you realize the price you're paying for that stuff, you start to realize you sort of start to get to a certain breaking point where you're like, you know what? I don't want those anymore. I don't want to settle anymore. Like I want to actually build what I want to build. And I'm tired of being exhausted by these people, you know,
and we have to just take ownership on it. I just need to take ownership on it and own it and be responsible and say, hey, I'm done. You know, I can't do this anymore. And yeah, so that is awesome. I know we only had a few minutes, but that was great.
Yeah, I'm texting this person that I'm just gonna send the link in 1 second. Send link in 1 second. Yeah, so I was trying to go as quickly as I could, but I know you had a couple of those questions. Is that helpful?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. Lori and I have both experienced this before. We've talked about it. We met on these conditions. So
I cut her out. I was like, I recognized something was off. And as soon as she confirmed it, I cut it off, because just like God has his children, the devil has his children too.
Right.
They're not going to change. They're not going to change. So I was like, you know, I need to get rid of it.
But it was a good thing, because that's how we met, you know?
Yeah, something negative, something good happened. Yeah,
exactly. God just took care of us.
Yeah. Awesome, ladies. Well, I'm supposed to do another one of these actually at 11. It's like 11 to 1. So I just texted them that I'll send this, but it's a pleasure talking with both of you. Yeah, I know this time goes very quickly, which is tough, but I just try to give as much as I possibly can in the time that we have.
It was awesome, Justin. You did a great job.
Yeah, thank you.
Lots of value there. So we're going to be able to share this with everybody, and so they can learn the value.
Yeah.
Provide, because you're really awesome.
Thank you. So, you know, if of course, if either of you guys are interested in learning more, I'm happy to talk with you one-on-one and see if there's any way I'm able to help. But at least for today, it was a pleasure talking with both of you. And Lori, pleasure meeting you via Zoom.
Pleasure.
And I hope you guys both have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.